Assumption 6 states that there is a homogeneity of variances between our two groups. What in the heck does this mean? So, variance is the measure of spread of your data. And that kind of sounds familiar, right? We talked about standard deviation a little while ago, which was the measure of how far your data was from your mean, from the center. It's kind of similar to variance because standard deviation is the square root of your variance. So they're very similar. And then homogeneity just means the same. So you're trying to make sure that the spread of your data is the same between your two groups. Just to give you an example of what this might look like visually, don't worry about any of this coding here, but I just pulled this up to show you. This figure 1 here is a really good example of homogeneity of variance because you can see just by looking that these points are pretty evenly spread according to the trend line. And then when you look at figure 2 here, you can see that the spread increases as the number of events is increasing. So we can say this is probably a pretty good example of homogeneity of variance, while this is not. However, it's important to keep in mind that just visual exploration of data, so even just looking at like a normal QQ plot, that's not a really great way to conclude that you do have homogeneity in your variances. You actually need to do a test. So we pulled Levine's test when we did this exploration of our data here. We're going to look based on the mean. So some weird things about the Levine statistic. Our null hypothesis is that there is no significant differences between the variances of our two groups. So that means that our alternative hypothesis means that there is a significant difference between the two groups. The weird thing about the Levine's test is that we actually are wanting to keep the null hypothesis. So we're wanting our significance value here to be above 0.05, which we don't really normally see in our other tests, right? We're always like looking for statistical significance and that our significance value is less than 0.05. But it's the opposite with Levine's statistic. So since this is above 0.05, we can say with comfort that there is homogeneity in our variances between our two groups here, so this data set does meet assumption number 6.